Peace to everyone. So a few days ago, the National Council, our Muskogee Creek Nation National Council, um, voted yes on a resolution of a vote of no confidence against the Muskogee Nation Supreme Court justices who ruled in favor of the freedmen. Now, 13 out of 15 voted to support this resolution of voting for no confidence. And one of the most outspoken among them was my real favorite Golden Girl, Sandra Golden, the one who literally came to my Aunt Arlene's house and helped me get registered to vote. So, Mado, Sandra, thank you for being so outspoken. Okay. I believe it was Lucy and Tiger that also made some words in the subject, which I appreciate. So the two that didn't vote yes. So one was somebody I voted for. Barnett. Dode Barnett. Who, when asked by, I think it was T.Y. Prohl, who asked her about the freedmen, would she support the freedmen becoming citizens, during the Muskogee News interview with Jared Moore when she ran for office. She said that she supports the Constitution, which shows by blood. Then she backtracked and she wouldn't support this resolution because she said that she doesn't have, it's not her, it's not her position or whatever it was. It's not her place. That's what she said, I think. To question the motives of Miko George Thompson, also known as, Supreme Court Justice George Thompson Jr. It's not her place to question his motives when he served the nation almost his entire life. And I'm like, look, I understand this respect for elders. I understand that he's a very respected individual when it comes to the ceremonial grounds, when it comes to the whole Justice for Hickory Ground movement. But I had my concerns about him doing a backdoor deal when the freedmen did their counter protest. Okay, as I call it. I'm going to do a separate video on that, by the way, because I got some damning information about them in regards to that from I would say, a reputable source that's close to the chief. Okay. Yeah, I don't know if that happened or not. I'm kind of on the fence now. I'm not so much thinking it did happen. I'm thinking more like, well, maybe it didn't. But we'll get into that later on. I'm still on the fence, to be honest. But she said it's not her place to question his motives. Well, look, he serves the nation. I understand that he's given decades of service to the nation. I appreciate that. But he ruled unconstitutionally. He and the other four, not just him. It's not just him. Although the fact that she mentions him would almost make it seem as if she thinks that he was the main person. Okay. It is absolutely her place to question the motives of anybody in our government when she is also a part of our government and she's supposed to stand for the Constitution as she claims she would do, and she lied. She backtracked, and I will never vote for her again because of that. The other person that didn't rule in favor didn't rule against either. She simply abstained, and that'd be Miss Robin Whitecloud, who I've never been impressed by, and I did not vote for. When she did her whole "let's put a woman in charge" type of campaign ads, and she sent some mailer where she's sitting on a motorcycle. I have it somewhere. She's sitting on a motorcycle. It wasn't even a Harley. Okay. And it wasn't an Indian either. I think it was like some Kawasaki or some Japanese bike. So my middle name is Harley, so I kind of take personal offense to that. I wasn't impressed by her at all. And now she's the lukewarm. She's the person that I actually disdain because she's a coward. And she also, not very strongly, but she did state that she stands for the Constitution, which says it's by blood, right? Or something along those lines. Like she was in her interview with Jared Moore. It was like, and again, I think it was T.Y. Prohl that was. So shout out to T.Y. Prohl, whoever you are. Okay, for bringing that question forward. Okay. Yeah, she's not a strong, empowered woman. Let's put a woman in charge. Like, no, she's not. Sandra Golden is a strong woman. She will speak her mind, and she will speak uh, with the rule of law. Okay, because she stands for the rule of law. She stands for our Constitution. I appreciate her for that. The only reason I didn't vote for her in office as second chief was because I wasn't sure she was going to quite mesh well with Principal Chief David Hill, who I completely support. Okay, I'm not saying everything he's done has been perfect. I've done videos in the past about I can't remember what's his name, but he talked with Ann Townsend. This was about a year ago, and there were some things that were that sounded kind of questionable. I wasn't there, but this guy says it was, and but look, I wasn't there, and I don't know the full story, but I support David Hill, Principal Chief David Hill, okay? And he has stood for the Constitution. He is living up to his oath, and I respect him and love him for that, okay? And Sandra Golden's right. You can't just amend the Constitution with a stroke of a pen as the Supreme Court. They do not have the authority to do that. They do not have that authority at all. Go read the Muskogee Creek Nation 1979 Constitution. Read all the amendments that have been made to it. They do not have that authority. Okay, they do not. So when it says that their word is the final say so, yeah, that only works constitutionally. They're not given the power to amend the Constitution. They don't have the power to act outside their authority. So by default, their decision is unconstitutional. It carries no legal weight. Now, moving forward, I don't know what's going to happen. Principal Chief David Hill could still do his task force, which I think he should do anyway, because quite frankly, we should know how many possible freedmen descendants are out there that might be looking for citizenship, and we should have an accurate number of, for all of our services to the tribal citizens, and we should talk with the by-blood citizens as communities and say, look, if we vote yes on this, if we write an amendment up and you vote for it, this is what's going to happen. Some of you think that there's not enough services for you now. This is what's going to happen with however many tens of thousands might be joining the tribe and then might start to dominate. Okay, like we want to know how you feel about this. You know what I'm saying? If the people by and large were to say like, oh, well, we still want the freedmen, then he would probably support the amendment, but as far as the people need to be notified with correct information. This is what can happen to you now. We can complain all we want about 1866 treaty being the supreme law of the land and all this unfair stuff to the freedmen, blah, 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 who, by the way, got a bunch of our land from the Dawes Act and who had citizenship for 113 years after, 1866 treaty was established, but I digress. You can debate that all you like. The reality is right now, we have a constitution. The Department of Interior accepted it. So the federal government accepts our constitution, which says by blood only. Okay. That means that is the supreme law of Muskogee Nation outside of the U.S. Constitution. Because the United States Constitution, because we're still subject to Congress, and, Dode Barnett was right when she mentioned that, we still have to, there's still the U.S. Constitution, the amendments, the Bill of Rights, whatever she said. Basically, she's still correct about that. Now, I don't support same-sex marriage as she does, but she mentioned that it's now been passed, and so now it's, it's a part of, U.S. constitutional law. Unless that gets amended out of existence, technically same-sex marriage is protected. So, yeah, so there's still going to be our freedom of speech, our right to keep and bear arms, our right to peaceably assemble, our right to not have our homes and our persons searched without a warrant that states specifically what is supposed to be searched, what is allowed to be searched. This is what is, we still have those American constitutional rights. And it's funny because I believe our old Muskogee Nation Constitution, which has now been replaced. It hasn't been violated, it's been replaced. And that's a whole complicated story right there. Because we at some point became sort of quasi-dissolved as a nation. very briefly, and then reconstituted, but under like more federal control. Um, we had chiefs appointed to us, and it wasn't like we had free elections. Okay. Um, our old constitution, if I recall correct, even had its own version of the Second Amendment. There was like our basic Bill of Rights, the American Bill of Rights, pretty much existed in some form within that, as I recall. So please correct me if I'm wrong on that, but as I recall, that was the case. There's no need for that right now because we're still subject to Congress, and as long as that's the case, and as long as the 1924 Snyder Act granting Native Americans born within U.S. territory, all Indians born within U.S. territorial soil, automatically become U.S. citizens unless by doing so they lose properties. That's what it says. I'm only slightly paraphrasing. It's really short, but as long as the Snyder Act of 1924 is in effect, and as long as we're still subject to Congress, and that means that we're all American citizens, and the American Bill of Rights applies to us as well, which is great. Okay, so that's the thing. That's how it is. Now, so we don't need to add those things to the current Muskogee Nation Constitution. It's unnecessary. Okay, and ultimately, if the Constitution were to change, we would be subject. Not Becky Barnett. Sorry, Dode Barnett. Becky Barnett's the language, Mahaya, but Dode Barnett is correct about that. Okay, but she just didn't live up to her oath. So I'm not voting for her ever again. I'm not going to vote for an oath breaker. And personally, I think all 5 Supreme Court justices should be, removed from office. They obviously will not stand up for the Constitution. They're going to put other politics and other things ahead of the 1979 Constitution that they are sworn to uphold. They are under oath. And here's the thing. It was pointed out in that whole meeting that they all swear the oath. Like, as I pointed out in the past, the principal chief, he swears the oath of office, and the National Council swears the oath of office, and they're required to do so. Again, I went through the Constitution several times, and the Supreme Court justice are not required unless I'm missing something. And point that out to me, please. Point that out to me if I misread past it several times that morning. Okay. But they still swear the oath, even if the document doesn't say they have to. They still do it, and that means they're still under oath. So maybe because the chief appoints them, and as part of that appointment, he administers the oath. Maybe that's sort of the deal. I don't know, but I'm not sure. I'm not sure exactly, but they do swear the oath, and that means they all broke the oath. That means Robin Whitecloud violated the oath, by not voting at all, by abstaining. She contradicted herself, and thereby did not support the Constitution that she's sworn to uphold. Dode Barnett violated her oath by voting no. So I have no confidence in them. The rest of them right now, God bless you all. Honestly, I mean it. I am proud that my tribal government is willing to, like most of my tribal government is willing to stand for the Constitution and uphold it. And you have the executive and the judicial branches that are currently opposed to not judicial, sorry. You have the legislative and, what's the first one I said? It's early morning. Sorry. You have 2 branches of government that are currently against the judicial government right now. And so we are kind of in a constitutional crisis, and it's the Supreme Court justice's fault. If we can remove them from office and redo the case, and they rule in favor of the Constitution, then done deal. We can move forward and say, hey, if we want to propose an amendment, that's different. And then if we vote for it, but even then, that's the task force needs to be done. That needs to be done so that we can have the people's input, and also the people can have proper knowledge of these things, because the Freedmen Band are just going to say, "Oh, supreme law of the land, supreme law of the land, supreme law of the land," and Damaro Solomon Simmons is going to keep getting up on his podium, is soapbox to say that we're all a bunch of racists, that the tribal government's racist, and that's there was already Black Creeks here when Columbus arrived, and all other things that he's been saying. It's on video. Like, I'm not making any of this stuff up. I'm not slandering the guy. He actually has said these things. Okay, so it's on record. It's on video. Okay, yeah. So Great Big Mado, to 13 out of 15 National Council members, and to our beloved Principal Chief, David Hill. I appreciate his administration doing their job. And if he was able to run for a third term, I would vote for him. I know he's a good man. I know he cares about the nation. I know that he, and when he became, I want to say president, when he became Principal Chief, I felt like the nation was moving into the 21st century for real. Okay. And I still feel like that's the case, and I'm grateful for the man. And that's it for now. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section. I still have that other video I need to put together, but had to do this one first. And I talk a lot. So I appreciate you all for having the patience and putting the time to listen to me and to pay attention to what's going on in Muskogee Nation right now. So, Mado and Hadam Chichaflis.